Hi, good morning, everybody. Afternoon for others. This is Rudy Reyes on the RudeDogShow.com. Wanted to reach out to everybody and say thank you so much for tuning in. I am live on YouTube, live on Facebook, and it's been a while since I've done a show, but I wanted to kind of sneak this in here only for the simple fact that when we look at the NFL, when we look at the landscape of what's going on via COVID list, Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans and eight others clearly have acquired the COVID-19. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at a lot of the protocols that are in place, when you look at what Roger Goodell has said, teams have sent out via the NFLPA, as well as the NFL, stating that if you don't get vaccinated, if you don't follow the safety rule guidelines, there will be penalties. And some of that is monetary penalty, and not to mention the larger picture in hand here. And look, I understand players want to have their opinions and their thought processes, and even their own freedoms when it comes to getting vaccinated, but that isn't the case here. This is the NFL saying we don't want any more outbreaks. Tennessee Titans clearly have an outbreak amongst them. More importantly, they're going to be placed all on COVID lists. That includes the head coach. That includes 7 other players who have contracted COVID. Now, we all know, we've heard this song and dance before, that when we look at the COVID list, when we look at the types of things that are predicated in regards to the protocols, what we're supposed to do or not supposed to do, get vaccinated, booster shot, wear your mask, social distancing, the list goes on and on and on. A lot of misinformation out there for those that don't know or have not been affected by COVID either directly or even indirectly. And at least I can almost put this on a guarantee. Again, this is Rudy Reyes on the RudeDogShow.com. We are live on Facebook, live on YouTube. Check me out. We are live right now. I wanted to talk about this, and it just kind of sent a chill down my spine a little bit when we think of the COVID outbreak, when we think of NFL players and what that means to other NFL teams. Well, the regular season doesn't appear to go without a hitch with the less than 17 weeks, 7 weeks away. The NFL is going to be here. September 13th is kickoff day. 2 days after my birthday. And of course, I want a gift when my team travels to Buffalo, takes on the Buffalo Bills. That's going to be an interesting matchup, to say the least, between Josh Allen and the high-powered offense, as well as the defense, which should take, obviously, a lot of credit for what they did last year against Pittsburgh when they visited Buffalo. However, when we look at the upcoming season, there's a lot of great matchups in the NFL. But more importantly, when you look back at the types of repercussions that are going to happen if these players do not get vaccinated, if they do not practice social distancing, they do not practice mask wearing. And it's not just to keep them safe, it's to keep everybody else around them safe. Everybody's had an in-home visitor or DoorDash where they show up with masks on their face. Well, there's a reason behind that. Obviously, they don't want to get it and they don't want to give it. Just because you're a getter doesn't mean you want to get this, especially with the Delta variant swirling its ugly head around here in the U.S. and beyond. I can assure you, it is other places. One particular player who has been completely blasting the NFL, stating it's his choice and he wants to do it. He doesn't have to tell anybody when he gets the shot or what have you. No, a test will actually provide that much information in regards to whether you've gotten vaccinated or not vaccinated, and that is the COVID test. I had one taken probably about 2 weeks ago or so, and it came back negative. I've already had 2 vaccines, and I'm asymptomatic. I hadn't had any issues, but since cleared, I've been able to get back to work and get on with a normal life. But Rachel Bush, wife of Bill safety Jordan Poyer, clearly stating that the NFL's COVID list and the COVID situation needs to be overhauled for the most part, which I don't necessarily agree with at all. I mean, clearly she's in a minority, at least within the NFL. And of course, riding a skateboard doesn't necessarily mean that you're active or that you've been vaccinated, or it doesn't really imply anything at all whatsoever. But what it does say is that maybe she hasn't been vaccinated herself. What kind of overhaul, that remains to be seen. But other players, along with Vernon Butler and Star Lotulelei, certainly as a part of that list of guys that have been not really suspended, but have been fined, that need to sit on the sidelines and kind of shake their head and think, well, how did we get to this point? How did we get here? Well, you got there because you didn't follow the protocol. You didn't follow procedure. You didn't follow the guidelines, whatever that entailed. Of course, they do not have COVID. They have been tested already and not shown to have COVID whatsoever. But I look at this and I think to myself, Cole Beasley has been completely blasting the NFL and blasting Roger Goodell in regards to what he thinks the NFL should do in regards to COVID, the guidelines, what that incorporates, what that entails. I think more importantly, you have to give this a lot more insight. I'm sure Cole Beasley is not the only guy in the NFL who has tested negative or maybe a false negative, false positives. There was a lot of that going on. A lot of, again, either misinformed or did not have the proper information in order to make an intellectual decision based on that information. But Cole Beasley will also miss part of practice along with Gabriel Davis, who I did not mention, Star Lotulelei, and Vernon Butler, who will also not take part as a part of the NFL's health and safety guidelines. Of course, every NFL team has that within their own entity. We heard Bruce Arians yesterday talking about how they're not going to approach the season any differently. The players are going to sit out and stay at their hotel during away games, and that's all there is to it. And the rules are his rules, and his rules seem to work. Obviously, we look at last year, you've seen Tampa Bay flutter during the middle of the season. They end up winning a Super Bowl. So, look, the bottom line is when someone's wife it goes to bat for you, that's not to be interpreted as a negative thing. What that is interpreted to is stating that maybe they're not informed. Maybe they clearly are not educated on the COVID-19 situation. Maybe they're not self-educating in regards to what the larger numbers look like, how many people have died from COVID and so on. And she's quoted on Twitter, out of all places, go figure that. I know damn well y'all are not about to put any blame on the players who, one, do not have COVID and are tested every day, but two, we're in contact with a vaccinated staff member. You're also backwards. It's insane. Okay, to your point, Rachel, I don't know that you're listening, and you're probably not, but I will tell you this much. They're not blaming the players specifically for having COVID. It's their decision-making processes within the part of those players to make the determination as to whether or not they put themselves in a very uncareful situation with other people that are not masked. And secondly, in a situation that could infect others if in fact they have it themselves. And of course, every player's tested. There's enhanced testing for these NFL players by the NFL. So it's not as if they're not tested, they're not checked. Yes, you're right. They didn't follow the protocol. They didn't follow the safety hold guidelines. So they're going to be sitting out of practice. It's real simple, Rachel. And then on top of that, we can't speculate that other members did not have COVID or they did have COVID. I can guarantee you every single person that even comes within contact, and the media has made this relatively known, at least the NFL did, for media members, that only up to 50 will be at any given NFL game this season. So we don't know that there's anything backwards in regards to this policy. I'm not privy to that policy. I'm sure it's more than posted if you guys want to do your due diligence on NFL.com. But you can always go to the cdc.gov and look at the numbers for yourselves across the U.S. in regards to sporting venues. LSU, a good example of that, basically on a lockdown throughout their regular season games, and will be tested. Players will be tested. There'll be very limited media guidance for these players, not necessarily guidance, but being able to surround them and be in the media. Baseball games, same thing there. If you're going into a play-by-play or a color position and you're walking into the stadium, you're going to sit behind the diamond on the upper tier. That's going to look very differently than what it did 2 years ago. You're going to have to probably be tested right then and there. But then again, there's no immediate test. So how does that happen? Well, they have to be tested in advance. And a lot of these guys who do not want to infect others within the broadcast booth, those that do not want to infect their producers and everybody else behind the scenes, will also have to be tested. So you can't necessarily say that these staff members are not vaccinated. I can guarantee you a lot of these guys that are behind the scenes in broadcast, because I'm in broadcast media, they also get vaccinated. Stations get closed down, and they have their own guidelines in their own corporate policies in regards to who has it, who doesn't. As I stated earlier, I had it. I was asymptomatic, but as a precautionary method, I was gone for 2 weeks and I stayed at home and I was working. Why? Because I needed to stay productive, for one. And secondly, I didn't want to infect anybody else. I wanted to do what I needed to do throughout the week. And at that point, I got tested, came back negative, and went back to work. It's really simple. You got to follow those guidelines. And of course, something about her ploy in relation to everybody's backwards, and maybe they need to redo this. And, I don't really take her as being very credible in that regard. And in all due respect, when you look at what she does for a living, it doesn't really, I don't know. It could be a wife in a secondary situation where she doesn't really contribute a whole lot to her husband's situation. He may be the breadwinner in that regard, but that's neither here nor there. However, the problem continues to be over and over again. She says, continue quoting NFL so far, especially within the Bills. She doesn't know that to be certain, because clearly that information is obviously outdated, not very informed, because as we see in the Tennessee Titans are dealing with an outbreak of COVID on their own as well. Of course, everybody's getting punished. They're getting punished because they're not paying the NFL and the teams are not going to be paying these players that willingly disregard the safety and health guidelines. I mean, that's just the way it is. And there's no reason. And of course, she goes on to swear, making her look a little less intelligent. And out of precaution, AJ Klein, Matt Milano of the Bills were sent back. I wish I could talk to Steve Tasker about this. I'm really interested to know a little bit about his thought process in regards to Cole Beasley and a few other players that had those issues. I want to kind of switch gears here only because, this is an ongoing situation. COVID is no joke, and we shouldn't treat it that way. We should treat it with kid gloves and very, very carefully. I must say, at least in this day and age, it really hasn't changed a whole lot, even in a year's worth of time, considering. Last night, there was 16 games. Did you guys watch 16 innings in that game? I cannot believe that actually happened. When you look at the Dodgers, they visited Petco Park yesterday. I watched it up until about the 9th inning, and it was a 1-1 tie. And I thought to myself, this has got to be the most insane game I had ever not had a chance to see, going into 16 innings with a home run tying in the bottom of the 15th with 19 walks, 19 combined pitchers at 489 pitches. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. The Dodgers intentionally walked the bases loaded twice and escaped both times. And what's more interesting is that when you look at the wild card standings here in Major League Baseball, it just really makes you wonder exactly where these two teams are at right now. When you look at the NL standings and the AL standings, it's almost divided by a real thin and fine line. Giants are, and I can't believe I'm saying this, are on top. With the winners of being 4 in a row, 82 and 44 with a .651 percentage. I didn't even see the Giants getting to this point, to be quite honest with you. I look at Major League Baseball and think to myself, man, this is a very diverse landscape, but the Giants to be on top right now in the NL West is just, it's mind blowing. And the Dodgers are right there. Okay. They're winners of 2 in a row. They're only 2.5 games back. It's anybody's ball game. It's still a wild card situation and scenario to actually play out. And I like the fact that you got a bunch of scrappy teams that are trying to get as a part of this really, really large picture in the NL wild card standings, with Cincinnati right there, 69 and 59. I didn't think the Reds were even going to get there. I bet Pete Rose is chomping at the bit right about now, or maybe sitting and eating in his chair with tons of popcorn. Reminds me of that gift for the guy showing popcorn in his mouth and falling all over the place, and he doesn't even care. San Diego 68 and 60, so they just fell a game back. I believe this is a 3-game series, so it's going to stay in San Diego. You have St. Louis, Philadelphia, and then the Mets out of all teams. And again, the Mets were designated to win, but DeGrom is up and down season for him on the IL, on the IR. DeGrom shut down again, so you didn't really see him come to fruition and become that guy that the Mets need. And I think that, look, the season's still far from over, and I understand you have a whole nother month of baseball, and it gets in October, it gets even muckier, gets even more busy when it comes to teams trying to clamor at the top. It's going to be interesting, but what's even more interesting, you look at the AL, you have the Yankees in Boston, Red Sox, which are right neck and neck. I haven't seen that happen in quite some time. And what's really interesting, something happened to the Yankees along the way. They were able to make a comeback, winners of 11 in a row. What's interesting is that they were in such a losing slump. They were losing 6 in a row, 7 in a row. Somehow they bounced back. And it's amazing how fast these games really go, or how fast the season is. If you look at it from a very larger photo, and different perspective. Boston 72-56. They lost theirs yesterday or day before, I believe. Oakland's right there in wild card. Seattle, Toronto, Cleveland. The Angels are actually in the mix, unbelievably so, even though they're playing less than 500. And Mark Kubica is probably scratching his head thinking, how do we even get to this point? Ohtani slipped a little bit in that. Detroit 61-67. You have Kansas City, Minnesota, Rangers out of all teams, and the Baltimore Orioles, which also is kind of a head scratcher as well. But this is a very interesting race. This is going to come down to the teams that make the less mistakes to get on the mound. I've said it before on the RudDogShow.com. You can always go to the RudDogShow.com, look at all the fantastic interviews I've done over the years, listen to a lot of great media, a lot of great Hall of Fame players, football, baseball, Al Bernstein. I mean, you name it, the list is exponential. You can probably add this to the list as well. But thanks for tuning in. I certainly appreciate it. So look, I like where Major League Baseball is going right now. There's a lot of things to like about it, but again, a lot of things to not like about it. A lot of the rules probably are still in a gray area mode. So you really have to look at that as well. And of course, going back to the NFL and talking about COVID, you haven't seen that kind of outbreak happen in Major League Baseball when it comes to the COVID-19 list or players that are on it. But more importantly, I look at this season for the NFL, and it could be on very shaky ground considering, the players that will or will not land on this COVID list. I thought I would jump on live on YouTube and Facebook and kind of discuss this a little bit. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I certainly have. It feels good getting right back on the saddle. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you guys again a lot sooner than later. Thanks a lot.